The great hall of the Galactic Council was buzzing with nervous energy. 12 different alien species had gathered for what many thought would be humanity's last day as members of the galaxy community. The massive room stretched up so high that the ceiling disappeared into shadows. Ancient symbols from a dozen worlds covered the walls, each one telling stories of species that had joined the council over thousands of years. At the center of it all sat a single human woman. Ambassador Lisa Martinez wore the simple blue uniform that all human diplomats used when meeting with aliens. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat style, and her hands rested calmly on the white table before her. She had been sitting there for 3 hours now, listening to one accusation after another with the same quiet smile she always wore. The aliens around her were not smiling. To her left, the bug-like Zraxians clicked and buzzed in their strange language. Their leader, a creature that looked like a giant praying mantis with too many eyes, spoke through a metal box that turned his clicks into words the other species could understand. "The humans are too nice," the translation device said in a flat, emotionless voice. "No species gets to space travel without being mean sometimes. They are hiding something from us." Across the room, General Krex of the Vorthek people slammed all 4 of his massive arms down on his speaking platform. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. General Krex stood 8 feet tall and was covered in thick gray skin that looked like stone. His people were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors, and right now he looked ready to start a fight. "Their warships have enough weapons to destroy moons," he growled, his voice so deep it made the floor shake. "But they say they are just explorers and scientists. This lie ends today." Ambassador Martinez stood up slowly. Even though she was much smaller than most of the aliens in the room, something about the way she moved made them all turn to look at her. When she spoke, her voice was calm and steady, just like it had been in hundreds of meetings before this one. "Honored members of the Council," she said, "humanity has shared all of our technology information with you. We have opened our worlds, so you could visit and see for yourselves. We have helped with 17 different peace missions. We have hidden nothing from you." The leader of the Etherians, a being made of living crystal that called itself Zeph-9, made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. The crystal being's body flashed with angry red and orange colors as it spoke. "Then explain why your warships pretend to be research ships," it said, its voice sounding like music played on broken glass. "Why do your cargo ships carry enough weapons to level entire cities?" Martinez tilted her head slightly, and for just a moment her smile seemed different, more sharp around the edges. "Because you asked us to tone it down. We thought you might be more comfortable with our diplomatic presentation." The room went completely silent. Several of the alien species looked at each other with expressions that clearly said they were worried about something. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever. Up in the observation area above the main floor, Captain Jake Sullivan watched everything happen with his jaw clenched tight. He was a tall man with short brown hair and scars on his hands that spoke of years spent doing dangerous work. Behind him stood 47 other humans, all wearing the same simple uniforms. They were scientists, engineers, doctors, and yes, some soldiers too. They had been the first humans to make contact with alien life, and they had spent 3 years trying to convince everyone that humanity could be trusted. "Captain," whispered Dr. Amy Foster, standing close enough that only he could hear her. She was a small woman with red hair and nervous hands that never seemed to stay still. "They really are going to kick us out, are not they?" Sullivan nodded slowly, never taking his eyes off the drama below them. 3 years of saying please. And thank you for everything, and they still think we are lying to them. Down on the main floor, another alien stood up. This one was called War Chief Thane, and he belonged to a species known as the Draconians. He looked like what humans might imagine a dragon would look like if it stood on 2 legs and wore armor. Scales covered his body, and when he opened his mouth to speak, everyone could see rows of sharp teeth. "I call for humanity to be kicked out of the council right now," he said, his voice carrying easily through the huge room. "They are clearly a warrior species that is pretending to be peaceful explorers. The proof is right in front of us." Martinez's Smile never changed, but anyone who really knew humans might have noticed that her eyes had gone very, very cold. She touched a small device on her wrist and spoke into it. "Captain Sullivan, please disable diplomatic protocols." The effect was immediate and terrifying. Up in the observation area, Captain Sullivan's whole body language changed in an instant. One moment he had been standing with the respectful posture of someone watching a formal ceremony. The next moment, he looked like a predator that had just spotted prey. Around him, all 47 humans did the same thing at exactly the same time. They all straightened up and became alert in a way that made the room's security computers automatically decide there was danger present. "Diplomatic protocols disabled, Ambassador." Sullivan's voice came through the room's communication system. Every alien in the chamber noticed how different he sounded now. Gone was the careful, measured way that humans had been talking for 3 years. This voice belonged to something that sounded dangerous. Martinez turned back to face the council. Members, and several of them actually took steps backward without thinking about it. Her smile was still there, but now it showed a few too many teeth. "Honored council members," she said, and her voice was different too now. "You seem to think that humanity has been lying to you. This is true, but not in the way you believe it. She pointed casually toward the observation area where the other humans stood. "What you have experienced for 3 years is not humanity hiding our true nature. It is humanity at our most restrained, most diplomatic, most civilized. We have been on our very, very best behavior." General Krex's forearms tensed up like he was getting ready to fight. "You admit that you have been lying to us?" "I admit to being polite," Martinez replied. And somehow that sounded more threatening than any direct challenge could have. "Do you know what it costs 47 humans to sit quietly in a room for 3 hours while being insulted? Do you know how much self-control it takes for a species that took over their home planet by fighting everything bigger and meaner than them with pointed sticks and bad attitudes to smile and nod while being called liars?" The chamber had gone so quiet that everyone could hear the hum of the air recycling systems. For the first time in 3 years, the aliens were seeing humans who were not trying to be diplomatic. And every single one of them was beginning to understand that they might have made a very serious mistake. Dr. Amy Foster stepped forward in the observation deck, and the nervous woman who had been whispering worried questions to Captain Sullivan was completely gone. In her place stood someone who moved with the confidence of a person who knew exactly how dangerous they were. When she spoke, her voice carried through the chamber with the authority of someone who had spent years studying the most efficient ways that life could end. "Captain," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "shall I explain to our friends what a human scientist actually means?" "Please do, Doctor," Sullivan replied, and his voice still carried that new edge that made several aliens unconsciously. "Step away from the speakers." Foster looked down at the assembled council. "Members like a teacher about to give a lesson to students who were not going to like what they learned. Honored delegates, I am Dr. Amy Foster, and I study alien biology. My specialty is learning how different species kill each other, how they die, and how to make both processes happen faster and more efficiently. This is what humans call life sciences." She paused to let that sink in, then continued with the same cheerful tone she might use to discuss the weather. "I have 17 different ways to kill every species in this room, and 12 of those ways only need things I can find in this chamber's air vents." The silence that followed was so complete that it felt like the room itself was holding its breath. Ambassador Martinez nodded approvingly, as if Foster had just given a perfectly normal introduction. "Captain Sullivan, would you mind sharing your work experience with our new friends?" "Of course, Ambassador," Sullivan said, and there was something in his voice that made the security systems flash warning lights. "Captain Jake Sullivan, formerly Major Sullivan of the Human Colonial Marines. I have been in 43 combat situations where people were actively trying to kill me and my team. My job was teaching other humans how to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and better armed than we are. It turns out to be something humans are naturally good at." The Zraxian delegates' many eyes went wide with what could only be described as terror. "You are all soldiers?" Oh no, Martinez laughed, and the sound made every alien in the room want to run away and hide. Captain Sullivan and his security team are soldiers. The rest of us are just regular people. Dr. Foster is a scientist. Commander Pete Anderson over there is an engineer. Lieutenant Sarah Kim handles our communications. The difference is very important to humans. She let that statement hang in the air for a moment before explaining. The difference is that our soldiers are trained to kill people efficiently. Our regular citizens have just figured out how to do it creatively. War Chief Thane, who had been standing frozen since the humans had changed, finally managed to speak. Are you threatening the Council? Martinez looked genuinely confused by the question. Threaten you? War Chief, we have spent 3 years trying to convince you that we are not dangerous. You have repeatedly rejected our peaceful approaches and demanded proof of our military abilities. We are simply clarifying the situation for you. She touched her wrist communicator again. Commander Anderson, please explain to the Council how human cargo ships work. From the observation deck, a stocky man with thick arms and grease stains on his uniform stepped forward. His hands looked like they had spent years fixing complicated machinery, and there was something about his eyes that suggested he could probably build a bomb out of spare parts if he needed to. Honored delegates, he said in a voice that sounded like he had been breathing engine fumes for decades. I am Pete Anderson, Chief Engineer. You have been worried about our cargo ships having too many defensive weapons. The thing is, we do not really think about cargo and weapons as different things. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing what looked like a simple metal box. This is a standard human cargo container. It is designed to carry anything from medical supplies to equipment for building new colonies. But humans have trust issues because we evolved on a planet where everything was trying to eat us, so we built our cargo containers to also work as missiles, fake targets to confuse enemies, or emergency fortresses. The display zoomed in to show the inside of the container, revealing a complex structure that was clearly much more than just a box. See, the thing about humans is we always assume everything is going to go wrong. So a cargo container is not just for carrying things. It can be turned into a bunker, a guided missile, a communication station, or a weapon platform depending on what we put inside it. General Krex's 4 massive arms were now shaking visibly. Your cargo ships are weapons? No, Anderson said, shaking his head like he was correcting a student who had misunderstood a simple concept. Our cargo ships are for carrying cargo. It is just that humans put weapons on everything. Not because we are planning to start fights, but because we are planning for fights to come find us. Martinez nodded like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. Commander Anderson makes an excellent point about how humans think. We do not build weapons, honored delegates. We build tools that can be used as weapons when we need them to be. There is a very important difference. She gestured, and the hologram changed to show what looked like a large mining tool with a focused beam of energy. This is a standard piece of equipment for changing planets to make them suitable for life. It can cut through 60 meters of solid rock every hour. Dr. Foster, what would you call this device? A precision surgical instrument capable of performing operations on an entire continent, Foster replied with the same cheerful tone she had been using all along. Captain Sullivan, your opinion? A weapon for controlling large areas that can strike targets from orbit, Sullivan said matter-of-factly. Commander Anderson? A really big cutting tool that I can probably modify to do whatever job needs doing. Anderson added with a slight grin. Martinez spread her hands in a gesture that somehow managed to look both innocent and threatening. At the same time, 3 humans, 3 different ways of thinking about the same tool. This is what you have been missing about humanity. We do not think in terms of weapons and non-weapons. We think in terms of things that are currently being used to hurt people and things that are not being used to hurt people yet. The crystal being that led the Etherians was now flashing colors that their species used to indicate extreme distress. Are you saying that everything humans build could potentially be a weapon? Everything anyone builds could potentially be a weapon, Martinez corrected gently, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. Humans just acknowledged this fact and planned for it accordingly. She looked around the chamber at all the terrified alien faces staring back at her. For 3 years, you have been interacting with humans who were trying very hard to be the kind of people you would be comfortable with. We have been suppressing every instinct that made us human. We have been polite when we wanted to be direct. We have been diplomatic when we wanted to be efficient. We have been peaceful when every part of our biology was screaming at us to secure the area and figure out where the threats might come from. The chamber was so quiet that the only sound was the soft humming of the translation, devices working to convert human words into languages the aliens could understand. What you are seeing now, Martinez continued, is not humans pretending to be something we are not. This is humans finally admitting what we actually are. Dr. Foster walked down from the observation deck to join Ambassador Martinez on the main floor of the chamber. Every step she took seemed to make the alien delegates more nervous. When she reached the center of the room, she turned to face the assembled council members with a smile that would have looked perfectly normal on any human face, but somehow made every non-human in the room want to find the nearest exit. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "You seem very confused about what humans actually are, so let me help you understand. You think we have been hiding how aggressive we are. This is not correct. We have been controlling our aggression." She gestured toward the aliens around her, and several of them stepped backward without realizing they were doing it. Every species in this room achieved space travel the normal way. You did it through cooperation, working together, and slowly building better technology over thousands of years. Your evolution taught you to avoid fights, share resources, and solve problems by talking about them. This is how intelligent species usually develop. The chamber remained completely silent, but Foster could see in their faces that they were starting to understand something they did not want to understand. Humans did not develop the normal way. We achieved space travel through spite, paranoia, and the absolute belief that somewhere out there was something trying to kill us and we needed to be able to kill it first. We reached the stars not because we wanted to explore, but because we were running away from danger and needed bigger weapons to defend ourselves. General Krex made a sound that his translator could not convert into words, but the meaning was clear enough. It was the sound a predator makes when it realizes it has been stalking something that might be more dangerous than it is. Foster turned to look directly at the massive Vorthok general. "General, your people evolved from animals that lived in herds on a world with plenty of food and water. You developed intelligence to help coordinate group activities and share resources fairly. When you encountered threats, your solution was to work together to avoid them." She moved to face the Zraxian delegate next. "Your people evolved from social insects with clearly defined jobs and group decision-making. Individual violence was bred out of your species because it disrupted the efficiency of your colonies." Then she looked up at the crystalline Etherian. "Leader, your species is literally made of living crystal. You share thoughts, emotions, and experiences directly with each other. The idea of one individual hurting another individual is completely foreign to how your minds work." Foster's expression grew almost sad, like she was about to deliver bad news to people she cared about. "Humans evolved from persistence hunters on a planet where everything was actively trying to kill us. The weather wanted to kill us. The geography wanted to kill us. The other animals wanted to kill us. And very often other groups of humans wanted to kill us too. We developed intelligence not to cooperate better, but to find new and creative ways to kill things that were bigger, stronger, faster, and better armed than we were." She paused and looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as she could. "For the past 3 years, we have been trying very, very hard to be the kind of species you could feel safe around. We have fought against every instinct that kept our ancestors alive for millions of years. We have been polite when we wanted to be direct. We have been diplomatic when we wanted to be efficient. We have been peaceful when every fiber of our being was telling us to secure the area and establish defensive positions. Captain Sullivan's voice carried from the observation deck above them. Dr. Foster, perhaps you should explain to our friends what normal human behavior actually looks like. Foster nodded and activated another holographic display. Certainly, Captain. Honored delegates, would you like to know what humanity was doing while we were being model galactic citizens for the past 3 years? Without waiting for an answer, she brought up a complex three-dimensional map that showed the locations of every ship, station, and inhabited world within 100 light-years of human space. We were mapping every vessel that entered our territory. We were analyzing the chemical composition of every atmosphere you breathe, studying the genetic structure of every species we met, and developing plans for approximately 47,000 different scenarios in which we might need to defend ourselves against all of you. The horror on the delegates' faces was immediate and universal. Several of them made sounds that their translators rendered as expressions of shock and fear. This was not because we wanted to hurt you, Foster continued in the same conversational tone she might use to discuss lunch plans. This was because there is a voice in the back of every human's head that never stops talking. It is the voice that kept our species alive when everything else on our planet was trying to eat us. And for 3 years that voice has been constantly whispering things like, what if they are hostile? And what if this is a trap? And what if we need to fight our way out of here? She gestured toward Sullivan and the other humans in the observation area. Do you see how relaxed they look now? That is because they are finally allowed to acknowledge what they have been thinking about for 3 years. Captain Sullivan has not been planning how to be a good diplomat. He has been planning how to turn this space station into floating debris if you decided to attack his people. Commander Anderson stepped forward and activated his own holographic display. Honored delegates, since we are being honest now, let me show you what we have been doing with our time. The display showed detailed technical specifications for every piece of alien technology the humans had encountered. We have reverse-engineered every tool, weapon, and piece of equipment we have seen. We know how your ships work, how your weapons function, and how your defensive systems operate. He pointed to different sections of the display as he spoke. We know that Vorthek armor has a weak point at the joint between the upper and lower torso plates. We know that Zraxian exoskeletons can be compromised by introducing specific sound frequencies. We know that Etherian crystalline matrices can be disrupted by electromagnetic pulses at precisely the right wavelength. The silence in the chamber was now so complete that it felt like a physical presence. Anderson continued with the same matter-of-fact tone. We also know how to synthesize the atmospheric gases that each of your species needs to survive. We have mapped the agricultural systems that feed your populations. And we have identified the critical infrastructure points that keep your civilizations functioning. Dr. Foster smiled and added, we know all of this not because we were planning to use it against you, but because knowledge is how humans stay alive. The more we know about potential threats, the better we can defend against them. And from a human perspective, everything that is not human is a potential threat until proven otherwise. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the communications officer, spoke up for the first time. We have also been monitoring all of your communications networks. Not to spy on you, but to make sure no one was planning to attack human colonies while our diplomats were here talking. We have translation matrices for every language spoken by every species in this chamber, including the private military codes that some of you thought we could not understand. Martinez nodded approvingly. What my colleagues are trying to explain is that the humans you have known for 3 years were real humans who genuinely wanted peace. But they were also humans who were prepared for war, because that is what humans do. We hope for the best while preparing for the worst. She looked around the chamber one more time. The question now is whether you can accept us as we actually are. Captain Sullivan walked down from the observation deck with slow, measured steps. Each footfall seemed to echo through the chamber like a countdown timer. When he reached the main floor, he stopped next to Dr. Foster and Ambassador Martinez, creating a triangle of humans that somehow made the entire massive chamber feel smaller and more dangerous. Honored delegates, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent years making life-and-death decisions under pressure. I think there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about what humanity represents. You seem to think we are a species that hides our true nature. This is incorrect. We are a species that chooses which nature to show. He gestured toward the aliens around him, and several of them instinctively moved away from his gaze. For 3 years, you have seen humans in what we call civilization mode. We follow rules, we negotiate problems, we compromise on solutions, and we try very hard not to hurt anyone unless we absolutely have to. This is real human behavior. It is not fake or pretended. Sullivan paused and looked directly at War Chief Thane. But civilization mode is not our only setting. War Chief, your people respect strength and honor courage in battle. You have spent 3 years thinking humans are weak because we avoid fights. Would you like to understand why we avoid fights? The massive draconian warrior managed to nod, though his scaled hands were now gripping his ceremonial weapons. We avoid fights because we are afraid we might enjoy them too much, Sullivan said simply. The statement hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several delegates made sounds of distress that their translators could not properly convert. Doctor stepped forward to continue the explanation. Honored delegates, let me tell you about human psychology. Most species that achieve intelligence do so by suppressing their aggressive instincts. Cooperation becomes more valuable than competition, so evolution selects for individuals who can work together peacefully. She activated another holographic display, this one showing brain scans of various species. Your brains are wired to feel good when you cooperate, share resources, and avoid conflict. Fighting makes you feel bad, so you naturally seek peaceful solutions to problems. The display changed to show a human brain, and the difference was immediately obvious. Where other species showed active regions during cooperation, the human brain showed activity in completely different areas. Human brains are wired differently, Foster continued. We feel good when we solve problems, even if solving those problems requires violence. We get satisfaction from protecting our group, even if protection means eliminating threats permanently. We experience joy when we overcome challenges, especially challenges that try to hurt us or our people. Commander Anderson joined them on the main floor, carrying a small device that looked like a simple tool, but somehow felt threatening in his hands. This is a standard human multi-tool, he said, holding it up for everyone to see. It has 17 different functions. Screwdriver, wire cutter, small knife, measuring device, emergency light, signal transmitter, and 11 other useful applications. He pressed a button, and the tool reconfigured itself into something that was unmistakably a weapon. It also has 3 combat configurations, 2 emergency defense modes, and can be used as a component in 14 different types of explosive devices. Anderson looked around the chamber with the expression of someone explaining something obvious. We did not design this as a weapon that pretends to be a tool. We designed it as a tool that can become a weapon when necessary. This is how humans think about everything. Lieutenant Kim stepped forward and activated her communication device. Honored delegates, for 3 years you have been receiving our diplomatic transmissions on standard galactic frequencies using agreed-upon protocols. What you did not know is that every single transmission also contained additional data streams. A new holographic display showed the hidden layers of information that had been embedded in every human communication. We have been simultaneously maintaining cultural databases, tactical assessments, emergency contact protocols, and evacuation procedures for every human in galaxy space. While our diplomats were saying please and thank you, our emergency networks were saying ready position 3 and maintain defensive posture. The crystalline Etherian leader's colors had shifted to patterns that indicated confusion and fear. You were preparing for war while negotiating for peace. We were preparing for survival while hoping for peace, Martinez corrected. There is a significant difference. Humans do not plan for war because we want to fight. We plan for war because we want to make sure our people survive if someone else wants to fight. Dr. Foster nodded and brought up another display, this one showing historical data from Earth. Let me give you some context about human development. On our homeworld, the average large predator was eliminated not by human groups working together, but by individual humans who decided that particular predator was a threat that needed to be removed. The display showed images of massive extinct creatures alongside much smaller human figures. Saber-toothed cats, cave bears, dire wolves, giant ground sloths. Humans did not evolve to run away from these things. We evolved to hunt them down and kill them so they could not threaten our families. Captain Sullivan added, the same psychological traits that made our ancestors track a wounded mammoth for 3 days across frozen wasteland are the traits that made us track every ship movement in this sector for 3 years. We do not give up, we do not forget, and we do not stop until the threat is eliminated or we are dead. Commander Anderson activated his own historical display. Here is something that might help you understand human nature. When our species first developed nuclear weapons, we immediately began planning how to survive a nuclear war. Not how to prevent one, but how to live through one and rebuild afterward. The display showed underground bunkers, food storage systems, and radiation protection protocols. Other species would have focused on making sure nuclear weapons were never used. Humans focused on making sure some humans would survive even if they were used. This is the difference between human thinking and normal thinking. Lieutenant Kim brought up communication records. During our 3 years of diplomatic contact, humanity established hidden supply caches at 47 locations throughout this sector. Emergency shelters, weapon stockpiles, communication arrays, and medical facilities. Not because we were planning to attack anyone, but because we were planning to survive if anyone attacked us. Dr. Foster smiled, and by now every alien in the chamber understood that a smiling human was probably more dangerous than an angry one. We also established contact with 17 separate resistance movements, underground organizations, and revolutionary groups throughout galactic space, not to support their causes, but to have alternative communication channels if our official diplomatic routes were compromised. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of several delegates trying to process information that fundamentally challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligent species. Martinez looked around the chamber one final time. Honored delegates, we are not a species that lies about being peaceful. We are a species that is always ready for peace to end. We hope it never does. We work very hard to make sure it does not. But we are prepared for the possibility that someone else might decide to end it for us. Sullivan's voice carried a finality that made it clear the revelations were complete. The question you need to answer now is simple. Do you want humans as allies who will die before allowing harm to come to those they have sworn to protect? Or do you want humans as a problem that needs to be solved? His smile was cold and sharp, but remember, humans are very good at solving problems. We have had millions of years of practice. Ambassador Martinez walked slowly to the exact center of the chamber, her movements carrying the fluid grace of a predator that no longer needed to pretend to be harmless. Every alien delegate watched her with the horrified fascination of prey. Animals who had finally realized they had been sharing space with an apex predator for 3 years without knowing it. When she stopped walking, the silence in the chamber was so complete that the sound of her breathing seemed loud. She looked around at each delegation in turn, making eye contact with as many of the alien representatives as possible. When she finally spoke, her voice carried an edge that made several species' survival instincts start screaming warnings. Honored Council members, she began, I want to be absolutely clear about something. The humans you have known for 3 years were real humans. We were not pretending to be peaceful. We were choosing to be peaceful. There is a very important difference between those two things. She moved to stand directly in front of War Chief Thane's delegation. The massive draconian warrior was now visibly tense, his scaled hands gripping his ceremonial weapon so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Martinez looked up at him without any sign of fear or intimidation. War Chief, she said, your people measure strength by victory in combat. You respect those who prove themselves in battle. For 3 years, you have dismissed humanity as weak because we refuse to fight you. Would you like to know the real reason we refuse to fight? Thane's voice came out as barely more than a growl. Why? Martinez smiled, and this time she made no effort to hide the predator behind it. Because we were afraid we might win. The simple statement hung in the air like a death sentence. Several delegates made sounds of distress that their translators could not properly convert into any known language. Martinez continued, her voice now carrying the absolute certainty of someone stating a fundamental law of physics. You see, War Chief, every human child learns a basic truth about violence. It is much easier to destroy than to create. It is much easier to break things than to build them. It is much easier to kill than to heal. We avoided fighting you not because we feared losing, but because we feared winning too completely. She turned to address the entire council. You want to know what real human military doctrine looks like? It is very simple. If something is worth fighting for, then it is worth winning. If it is worth winning, then it is worth winning permanently. If it is worth winning permanently, then the enemy's ability to threaten what you are protecting must be completely eliminated. Dr. Foster stepped forward to join Martinez in the center of the chamber. Honored delegates, humans have a saying that goes, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The problem with humanity is not that we see everything as a nail. The problem is that we are very, very good hammers. Captain Sullivan's voice carried clearly through the chamber from where he stood. For 3 years, we have been trying to convince you that we were something other than what we are. But you have forced us to be honest, so here is honest truth. Humanity does not want to conquer the galaxy. We do not want to rule other species. We do not want to spread human culture or human values or human anything across the stars. He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. We want to be left alone to take care of our own people. But if something threatens what we are protecting, we will remove that threat completely, efficiently, and permanently. This is not open to negotiation. This is not subject to diplomatic discussion. This is simply what humans do when pushed too far. Commander Anderson activated one final holographic display. This one showed real-time tactical information about every ship, station, and defensive position within 100 light-years of the council chamber. Honored delegates, while we have been having this conversation, 47 human vessels have moved into strategic positions around this sector. Not to threaten you, but to ensure that if this meeting goes badly, every human civilian in the area can be evacuated safely. The display zoomed in to show the positions of the human ships. They were not arranged for attack, but for defense and rapid extraction. We also have emergency protocols ready to activate supply caches, communication networks, and safe houses throughout galactic space. If you decide today that humans cannot be part of galactic civilization, we will leave. But we will leave prepared to survive whatever comes next. Lieutenant Kim added, our evacuation plans include contingencies for up to 96 different scenarios, ranging from simple diplomatic expulsion to active pursuit and attempted extermination. We have studied every military capability of every species in this chamber, and we have plans for dealing with all of them. Dr. Foster smiled pleasantly. We have also prepared detailed information packages about human psychology, biology, and capabilities that will be automatically transmitted to every intelligence network, military organization, and research facility. In known space, if anything happens to the humans in this chamber today. Martinez nodded approvingly. What Dr. Foster is trying to explain is that we are not threatening you. We are simply making sure you understand the complete situation before you make your decision. She gestured toward the holographic displays around the chamber. If you choose to have humans as allies, you will have allies who will die before they let harm come to those they have sworn to protect. Allies who will share technologies you have never imagined and help you solve problems you did not know you had. Allies who will stand between you and whatever threatens you, no matter how big or dangerous it might be. Her smile softened slightly, but her eyes remained cold. If you choose to have humans as enemies, you will have enemies who never forget. Never give up, and never stop until the threat is eliminated. Enemies who will turn your own technology against you, who will find weaknesses you did not know you had, and who will keep coming no matter how many times you think you have defeated them. The chamber was silent for a long moment. The alien delegates looked at each other with expressions that clearly showed they were all thinking the same thing. Finally, the crystalline Etherian Council leader, Zeph 9, began to emit harmonic frequencies that indicated formal pronouncement. The Galactic Council hereby withdraws all charges against humanity, the musical voice announced. Furthermore, we formally request that humanity consider remaining as valued allies in the galactic community. Martinez's smile became genuinely warm for the first time in hours. We accept your invitation. Captain Sullivan, please re-enable diplomatic protocols. Diplomatic protocols re-enabled, Ambassador. Sullivan replied immediately. The change was instantaneous and almost magical. 47 humans simultaneously relaxed, their predatory alertness fading back into the careful, measured politeness that the galaxy had known for 3 years. But now every delegate in the chamber understood exactly what lay beneath that politeness, and why it was probably better to keep it buried. Martinez straightened her diplomatic uniform and smiled with the same pleasant expression she had worn at the beginning of the meeting. Now then, shall we discuss humanity's expanded role in galactic affairs? I believe we have several technologies and security solutions that might be of interest to the Council. As the alien delegates took their seats with newfound respect and, more than a little healthy fear, Dr. Foster leaned close to Captain Sullivan and whispered quietly enough that only he could hear. Think they will ever figure out that this was still us being diplomatic? Sullivan's grin was pure human mischief. Doc, some things are better left as surprises. And in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, humanity took its place not as the peaceful species they had pretended to be, but as the dangerous species that had chosen to be peaceful. The difference, as every alien present now understood, was everything.